On this episode of Laid Back History, we're talking about the Lost Colony of Vandalia. So I want to welcome you back to another episode of Laid Back History, an all-new episode of Laid Back History. Thank you for having some patience with us over the last couple months as we've been developing these new episodes. We're trying to do a series, a couple different series. One of them will focus on Black History Month. That'll be February 15th and the 22nd. We have two special episodes about Black History Month, and so we'll be announcing those soon. And then we have a series of 3 or 4 episodes on Lost Colonies and Lost States. And that's what we're starting today. We're going to be talking about Vandalia. There's some interesting stories in the United States. If you look at how state lines, how borders were developed and how colonies were formed and the arguments over land and people had ideas to form different colonies in different states that never formed. And several of those have to do with southwestern Pennsylvania. And so I want to talk about those. The next several, there's going to be a series of episodes with a brief break in between for Black History Month, where we're going to be talking about those lost colonies and those lost states. And today we're going to start it off with the Lost Colony of Vandalia. And it's an interesting story, and we've got to go all the way back to like 1748, somewhere in there, to begin our story. And you have to go with the Ohio Company. So this land out where we are, where we're here today in Washington, but the forks of the Ohio is what I'm going to refer to it as most, or the Ohio Valley. The forks of the Ohio, that's present-day Pittsburgh. But the Ohio Valley is a fertile land. It's a hunting ground for the American Indians, but it's also an area that British settlers, French settlers originally actually, and British settlers, they want to come out here, they want to settle down because they see some incredible opportunities because of how fertile the land is. But because of different treaties with Native Americans, that doesn't really happen. But the British still have their eye on it. So in 1748, even though there is a treaty in place not to move out this far, the Ohio Company decides they want to have they want to petition for a land grant for out in this area. And so they receive 200,000 acres to be situated near the forks of the Ohio, near Pittsburgh. So they had plans of settling, having settlers come out here. Now, as soon as that happens, you start, this land is granted, you start seeing traders coming out here and settling down. So there's trading posts and traders all over the area. They're trading with the American Indians. And you know what? It's going real well for them. The American Indians are bringing in hides and trading them to the traders. They're getting in trade, in some cases, muskets. They were known as trade muskets. They're getting iron goods. The first iron tomahawks, they come from English traders. And so they're kind of both sides are making out. But the idea of settling out here gets interrupted with first the French and Indian War, and then eventually Pontiac's Rebellion, which breaks out right at the end of the French and Indian War in 1780 or 1763. And so it delays this idea of settlement. Well, what happens is during the French and Indian War and Pontiac's Rebellion, which did take place more so up in around the Great Lakes, but it did involve this region some, these traders lose just about everything. They lose their goods, they lose their homes in some cases, their trading posts. They're attacked, they're burnt to the ground, they're robbed, and so they lose everything. Well, following the end of Pontiac's Rebellion, which occurred in 1768 with the Treaty of Fort Stanwix, you have this group of traders. They're called the Suffering Traders. Well, they would officially form themselves into a group called the Indiana Company. And they petitioned that with the Treaty of Fort Stanwix, that they would receive some land that they could basically rebuild on. And so it is decided that they would receive some land along the Ohio River, and this is put forth in the Treaty of Fort Stanwix of 1768. And so they're going to receive what becomes known as the Indiana Grant. And the Indiana Grant is down kind of like the panhandle and northern portions of Virginia. Well, I'm sorry, West Virginia now, but Virginia at the time. Well, what ends up happening is there's two gentlemen, they're basically the heads of the Indiana Company, Samuel Warwick and a Samuel Wharton and a William Trenton. And so they're going to head to England to make sure that this land grant is official and to receive their patent. Before they head over there, though, they partner with the Ohio Company to form the Grand Ohio Company. And so they head over to England, and when they receive their grant, it is for far more than what the original Indiana grant was. We're talking about 4 or 5 times as much that they were going to receive. And so they're thrilled. They're like, okay, we've got this. It finally becomes official. And they head on a boat. They sail back to the Americas with the idea of forming their colony. Now, their colony would have been southwestern Pennsylvania, basically Pittsburgh south. So what is Allegheny County, portions of Beaver, Washington County, Greene County, and a portion of Fayette. And I think there might have been a portion of Westmoreland County in there as well. And then going down basically what is current day West Virginia, except for the panhandle going over south of Maryland. And then going down into the border with Kentucky. There's portions of Kentucky that are part of it. So you have this area that is bordered off. So basically the eastern border is the Allegheny Mountains, which is the old portion before the Treaty of Fort Stanwix. That was kind of the border of the colonies. Now, even though they claim more. And then going down, following the Ohio River down to the Kentucky River is where it stops. And so that is what's going to be Vandalia, the colony of Vandalia. Now, there's some arguments over it. The border is kind of weird. If you look at that section of southwestern Pennsylvania, there's like this weird little piece that comes over and then goes straight over, which is the southern border of Pennsylvania, and what is current day, Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland. The reason there's that line there is because of the Mason-Dixon line. When they originally surveyed it, it didn't go all the way across the United States, or at least across to the present day southwestern border of Pennsylvania. It stopped short. And that opened up Virginia to claim a lot of southwestern Pennsylvania. They claimed they had what they called the West Augusta District, and that was pretty much that entire area of southwestern Pennsylvania, and they claimed that as theirs. Now, that goes into another argument that I'm going to get into in the next episode, but they claimed it as their colony. So there's opposition to this land patent for Vandalia because Virginia claims all of that. But they had the patent from the British government, and so they're ready to form this colony. So they're developing it. They're working on to getting settlers to move out. You have some settlers that do go out. In fact, as soon as the land grant is issued, they start going out and they start to settle. But what ends up happening is the reason we don't have the state of Vandalia, or we never had the colony of Vandalia, is because the American Revolution breaks out. So when the American Revolution breaks out, that basically ends any plans for this colony. It falls apart. Now, the reason it wasn't even formed before the American Revolution is because of the opposition from places like Virginia and Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania claimed it too. Like I said, there's a lot of border disputes, and portions of what they claimed of what was going to be Vandalia, Maryland even claimed. You could see on different maps that show the arguments over what was claimed. So Pennsylvania claimed way down in the Maryland and even northern portions of Virginia. Maryland claimed way up in the Pennsylvania. Virginia claimed southwestern Pennsylvania. All kinds of claims. Because of that, and then eventually the American Revolution, you never see Vandalia being formed, and it falls apart. And then because of the success of the American Revolution, you don't have it formed. The Grand Ohio Land Company, they don't get to carry out with their plans because it's an English company. So you have the Lost Colony of Vandalia that, who knows if the American Revolution takes a little bit longer, if Virginia, they're not such land-hungry pricks. Sorry. If they're not so land hungry, maybe Vandalia is formed, and we are living in the state of Vandalia right now instead of the state of Pennsylvania. Or actually, I guess the first name of Vandalia was actually Pittsylvania, for William Pitt. Which, man, could you imagine living in Pittsylvania? A lot of jokes about that, I think, would be coming up. What was the yay Pitt? Yeah, I think we'd get a lot of those. So anyway. So that's the story of Vandalia, the Lost Colony of Vandalia. Next week, we'll be talking about a lost state that almost formed during the Whiskey Rebellion, and that's our next episode. Then we're gonna have our 2 special episodes for Black History Month, and then we'll be back with another state that people probably heard of, the one I'm going to talk about next week. But the third portion of this series, I guarantee you've never heard of this state that was going to be formed out of portions of western Pennsylvania. So we'll be talking about that. But I guess that's it. So thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you guys watching every week. And I guess we'll see you next week for an all-new episode of Laid Back History.